You're listening to The Jacob Valk Show. He's breaking down the latest and greatest in sports as only he can. Follow him on Twitter at RealJacobValk. Here he is, Jacob Valk.
Hello, sports fans! Welcome to another edition of the Jacob Valk Show. I am Jacob Valk, and you remember when I said that no big sports news would break in the last 24 hours? Well, I was right. Fortunately for you, I have the trifecta. Here we go, let's do it. If you've been keeping score, you know that I am on the Houston Texans, a team that has had a much maligned offseason. I've defended their moves, and yeah, sometimes it's been a little tough too, but ultimately I still like Bill O'Brien. I don't think he should be GM, but I think he's a really good coach. If he leaves Houston, I have no problem hiring him as just a head coach. No front office responsibilities. Just as a head coach. They went into the draft needing help at defensive tackle. DJ Reader went to the Bengals, got a big contract. Good for him. He deserved it. But that left Eddie Vanderdoes, or Vanderdoes, I'm actually not sure how to pronounce it. I think it's Vanderdoes, as their starting defensive tackle. That's not a good sign when he's your starting defensive tackle. He's not that good. The Texans stopped the slide of Ross Blacklock by taking him at 40 overall. I had him as the 22nd best prospect in this draft. In the mock draft I did with Nick, we had him going 25. Blacklock is sensational against the run. Great pass rusher, really athletic, tough player. Came back from his Achilles injury in 2018 and started all 12 games. I like that. What I don't like is the fact that he had an Achilles injury. That does raise a red flag to me. He didn't jump off the tape at TCU. He's got to add a ton of muscle. See, the thing is, the Achilles injury, he lost a lot of weight. He's got to add that weight back on in muscle. That's tough. I don't like that yo-yoing. But I think that Blacklock is going to work out. A defensive line that has J.J. Watt and Ross Blacklock on it. I don't care who the third guy is, whether it's Angelo Blackson or Charles Omenihu, whoever. That is a scary defensive line. Jonathan Greenard was a reach at 90 overall. I had him as a late 4th round prospect. The Texans took him in the late 3rd round. I don't like that. He's not the smartest player in the world. He doesn't have a good frame. And I just don't think he has the raw tools necessary to be a great player. Now, he's a great tackler. He's a guy who will bring you down in one-on-one situations. And when you watch him play at Florida, he jumps off the tape. But that frame is really scary. 6'3", 263 pounds. That's not that good. I don't think he's the kind of guy who can play all 3 downs, and he's not the smartest player in the world. That was a big reach by the Texans. But they made up for it by taking Charlie Heck. They picked him in the exact right spot, mid to late 4th round. I had a higher grade on Heck than I did Greenard, quite honestly. Really a jack of all trades, master of none. The one thing I'm not crazy about when it comes to that pick is the Texans needed a guard a lot more than they needed a tackle. Obviously, they traded for Tunsil last year, and 13 months ago, they picked Titus Howard in the 1st round. It's too early to give up on him. So they're going to try to kick him inside. Lord knows they need help on the interior of that offensive line. Nick Martin's a good center, but Max Sharping and Zach Fulton are terrible guards. I'm not sure how Heck is going to do as a guard. I like Heck a lot. Again, jack of all trades, master of none. And I like his bloodlines. His father, Andy Heck, was a great college player at Notre Dame and won a Super Bowl for the Chiefs last year as their offensive line coach. But I'm not sure how that transition is going to go to offensive guard. It can work. It's just not a guarantee. And that was by far and away their second biggest need. John Reed was an egregious reach. This is a guy who I had a 7th round grade on, and the Texans took him in the 4th round. Terrible ball skills, not an incredibly smart player, bad cover skills. He can't even transition over to safety. He's not a good tackler. Now, he has a good frame, and I know that the people at Penn State liked him. Bill O'Brien, obviously, still has some connections there. But to take this guy in the 4th round was egregious. That was a terrible, terrible pick. One of the worst picks of the draft. I don't know if I talked about it the Monday after the draft, but I should have. They did make up for it, though, by taking Isaiah Coulter. This fit his range as a late 5th rounder. Coulter had a great year last year at Rhode Island. 72 catches for over 1,000 yards and 8 touchdowns. I understand that it's for Rhode Island, not Alabama or LSU or Clemson, but still, if you're having a 1,000-yard season, you're doing something right. He has a great frame, really athletic. The thing is, he's not a good route runner, and in jump ball situations, he had a tendency to get bullied in the air, but Coulter is well worth the pick as a 5th rounder. I think if you iron out those kinks, and they're not a lot of kinks, but if you iron them out, you've got a really good wide receiver. I'm just not crazy about the fit, though. They traded for Cooks, they signed Randall Cobb, they still have Kenny Stills, they still have Will Fuller, they still have Kiki Cutie. I don't know why they needed another wide receiver. All in all, the Texans had a decent draft. They didn't have a great draft. I like the players they picked for the most part. I just think that a couple of them were huge reaches, and it's going to be interesting to see how Heck transitions to offensive guard. I'm going to give them a C+. I think that's really, really fair, especially when you factor in that they only had 5 picks in this draft. A 2nd, a 3rd, 2 4ths, and a 5th. Can't do much with just 5 picks. Alright, it's time for this day in sports history. On this day, in 1956, Al Simmons passed away 4 days after his 54th birthday. It's okay if you don't know who Al Simmons was. The guy played from the mid-20s into the mid-40s and bounced around to a bunch of teams. But in his era, he was one of the best hitters in all of baseball. In his rookie year, 1924, he hit .308 with 8 home runs and 102 RBIs. If we had the Rookie of the Year award back then, it's a fair bet to say he would have won it. He placed 11th in MVP voting that year. That's pretty darn good for a rookie not named Aaron Judge or Pete Alonso. That set the tone for Simmons' whole career. His sophomore season, he hit .387. Led the majors in hits with 253. Had 24 homers and 129 RBIs. Placed second in MVP voting behind Roger Peckinpah. Let me tell ya, Simmons had a great argument to win that MVP over Peckinpah. That was unfortunately the closest that Simmons would ever get to an MVP. Even though he had some great seasons after that, in 26, 341 with 19 homers and 110 RBIs, and in 27, 392, 15 homers, 108 RBIs. He was in the top 5 in those years, but didn't finish higher than 4th. But he continued to dominate. In 1929, the Athletics made the World Series in no small part to Simmons. He had .365 with 34 homers, his first 30 home run season, and led the American League with 157 RBIs. The Athletics went on to face the Cubs that year, and they beat the Cubs in 5 games to win the World Series. They then repeated in 1930 by beating the Cardinals in 6 games. Simmons led the American League in batting average with .381 and had his best season from a power perspective when he hit 36 homers and 165 RBIs. In fact, you can make the argument that that was his best season, period, and he carried that over into the postseason by hitting .364 with 2 homers and 4 RBIs. In 29, Simmons hit .300 with 2 homers and 5 RBIs. In 1931, the Athletics made it to the World Series for a 3rd straight year. Simmons was great, hit .333 with 2 homers and 8 RBIs. This is after he led the majors in batting average by hitting .390 with 22 homers and 128 RBIs. He finished 3rd in MVP voting that year. But the Cardinals beat the Athletics in 7 games. By the end of the 1932 season, the Great Depression was in full effect. There were very few owners that had the money necessary to field a good baseball team, and Connie Mack was forced to sell 3 of his best players to the White Sox. He sold Jimmy Dykes, Mewell Haas, and Simmons for $100,000. To put that number into perspective, $100,000 is the same amount of money that the Yankees paid in cash for Babe Ruth. Although, for whatever it's worth, the total sale of Ruth to the Yankees cost more because Jacob Ruppert lent Harry Frazee, Ruppert, former owner of the Yankees, Frazee, former owner of the Red Sox, $350,000 that was secured by a mortgage on Fenway Park. So the Yankees actually owned Fenway Park for a little bit. Imagine if they had foreclosed on it. That would have been amazing. While Dykes and Haas were great players, the best of the players was Simmons. He made the first ever AL All-Star team in 1933 by hitting .331 with 14 homers and 119 RBIs. In his 3 seasons with the White Sox, he would make the All-Star team in every year. Although, I think he'd have preferred to have not made the All-Star team in 1934 because he was part of one of the most famous moments in All-Star Game history when Carl Hubbell struck out Babe Ruth, Lou Gehrig, Jimmy Fox, Simmons, and Joe Cronin in consecutive at-bats. Absolutely unreal. That really spelled the end of Simmons' dominance. He bounced around for a few more years after that. In 36, he had a great year for the Tigers. Hit .327 with 13 homers and 112 RBIs. In 38, his last year with the Washington Senators, he hit .302 with 21 homers and 95 RBIs. Simmons was then sold to the Boston Braves because he wasn't getting along with Senators owner Clark Griffith. But that was really it for Simmons' uber dominance. He finished his career with 2,927 hits, and he deservedly made the Hall of Fame in 1953, 3 years before he would die of a heart attack. May he rest in peace. Alright, it's time for another Mount Rushmore. We're on the Toronto Blue Jays now, the second to last baseball team. You know, I gotta say, when I said in the teaser that I was gonna do these Mount Rushmores, I didn't expect that I was gonna burn through them all by late May. But, in any event, the correct Mount Rushmore for the Blue Jays is Roy Halladay, Carlos Delgado, Joe Carter, and Dave Stieb. Halladay, when he was with the Blue Jays, was one of the best pitchers in all of baseball. In fact, may have been the best pitcher in all of baseball. Won a Cy Young for him in 2003. Killed the Yankees. Nearly became a Yankee. I remember the trade package. It was Manny Banuelos, Dellin Betances, and it may have been... No, you know who it was? I think it was Jesus Montero. I was going to say it was Gary Sanchez, but that timeline didn't fit. No, I'm pretty sure it was Montero. Pretty sure it was Banuelos, Betances, and Montero. Needless to say, the Yankees should have done that deal. Carlos Delgado holds a bunch of Blue Jays records. I'll just rattle through them here on Baseball Reference, the notable ones. Runs scored, doubles, home runs, RBIs, walks. I mean, he was unreal. I remember those old Blue Jays teams going up against the Yankees. Him and Vernon Wells were the only hitters that you feared. But let me tell you, you feared them. You pitched around them, and you let the other guys try to beat you. More often than not, they couldn't. Joe Carter was probably the best player out of anyone who spent time with both Blue Jays winning teams in 92 and 93. Those teams were absolutely insane, some of the most underrated teams in baseball history. And Carter obviously hit the World Series winning home run in 93 off of Mitch Williams. Dave Stieb holds a bunch of Blue Jays pitching records, namely wins and strikeouts. Unfortunately for him, he's probably best known for having 2 no-hitters in back-to-back starts broken up with 2 outs in the 9th inning. I mean, what are the odds of that? And to make matters worse, he had a perfect game later in his career going with 2 outs in the 9th, but it was broken up. I mean, what are the odds of that? Seriously. But Steve was a great pitcher for the Blue Jays, 7-time All-Star, led the American League in ERA in 1985, was almost a lifetime Blue Jay, but he pitched 4 games for the White Sox in 1993. Alright, short show today. I do apologize for that. There's just not a lot to talk about. When Major League Baseball releases its plan to make the Players Association happy in terms of financial compensation, I'll talk about that. The one thing I'll say is those 2 sides need to get together quickly, or else we're not going to see baseball this year. And it's going to be very tough for baseball to rebound from that. Just as it's going to be tough for hockey to rebound from this, it's going to be tough for baseball to rebound from this. Until tomorrow, I am Jacob Valk saying that I've had girlfriends that didn't make it through an 11-inning game.